Today we'll be talking about Black Ops 3 and what made it so beloved, unique, and special. Black Ops 3 was the very first Call of Duty that came out with the new and updated consoles, the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4. And at the time, most Call of Duty players were on console, so this was a huge upgrade from the previous Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 systems, thus allowing the graphics of the newer games to be significantly better, and allowed for improved engines, making the games more complex in a good way. Black Ops 3 was coming off the previous Call of Duty titles, Advanced Warfare and Ghosts, which were not liked by the community and didn't sell very well in the box office. Though Black Ops 3 did have the succession of Black Ops 2, its predecessor, to improve its hype and its popularity amongst the fan base. Black Ops 3 made $550 million in its first 3 days of release, and by the end of 2015 became the top-selling game. Black Ops 3 had 3 main game modes, being multiplayer, zombies, and campaign, but for this video alone, I won't be touching on the campaign just because I don't feel qualified enough to talk about it. So, I'll start with multiplayer. There were several things in this game keeping the multiplayer fresh, unique, expansive, innovative, and well-rounded loved by the community, such as its movement system being not boots on the ground and jetpack gameplay, along with wall running. In addition to that, there was amazing gunplay with futuristic weapons that we hadn't seen before. There were good lobby leaderboards and transparency with you being able to see community creations and get to see other people's accounts, stats. There were so many unique maps that were only fit to Black Ops 3's engine and system alone. For example, that Black Ops 2 wouldn't be able to pull off for any Call of Duty title before this game. They added a secret mastery camo, Dark Matter, which has become one of the most iconic camos ever. They added paint jobs too, which just allowed people to create unique and specialized gun camos fit to whatever they want, and allowed for content and replayability, which allows for just more to do within the game alone. And also they had a controversial transaction system which most people did not like, that required a paywall. The first thing we'll get into within the multiplayer is the jetpacks. This was the second Call of Duty ever that tried the innovation of jetpacks within the multiplayer, which was a very controversial thing because every other game up to this point had been boots on the ground, and this was just something unique and different that not a lot of people enjoyed. It was pretty controversial to whether Call of Duty should ever do another jetpack game after the failure of Advanced Warfare. So Treyarch knew that they were taking another risk in doing this, and honestly, it really paid off for them. The movement system in this game felt extremely unique from every other Call of Duty, including Advanced Warfare. It almost felt a lot more smooth, including the wall running and the sliding mechanics. The game pacing felt so much faster because of this. You were able to double jump in the air, move along the map a lot faster, and when you were done jumping and you ran out of stamina, you could just slide across the map. This allowed for people to increasingly rush each other and stop camping. The addition of blast suppressor and dead silence perks also allowed for people to be silent when moving around the map, whether that was jumping or just normal running footsteps, which also kept camping to a minimum in this game and promoted fast combat and rushing each other, which may not be what you like in a Call of Duty, but for me personally is my perfect playstyle. The gunplay was also incredible, with having launched with 6 SMGs, being the Kuda, the VMP, the Razorback, the Vesper, the Weevil, and the Pharaoh, each one being somewhat similar but also a little bit unique and slightly different from one another, with a Vesper being extremely inaccurate from far range but being a melter from close range, shooting extremely fast, to a Pharaoh which was a burst, fast shooting SMG that was close range but also decently accurate from mid to long range. The game of course also launched with assault rifles, LMGs, shotguns, snipers, and secondaries. For the assault rifle category, the game launched with 7, being the M8A7, HVK, the KN44, XR2, ICR, Shiva, and the Man of War. And for the light machine guns, the game released with 4, being the Dingo, the BRM, the 48 Dredge, and the Gorgon. And for the shotguns, the KRM, the Brecci, the Argus, and the Haymaker. And the snipers being very unique, releasing with 4, the Drakon, the Locust, the PO6, and the SVG. And for the secondary categories, being the pistols, the launchers, and the knife. All these weapons allowed for a ton of different replayability, especially when the guns are completely different. For example, the sniper rifle category, the Drakon is a semi-automatic sniper which you need to shoot several times to kill an opponent, versus a Locust or an SVG. It's a hard-hitting bolt action which would probably eliminate your opponent with a chest shot or above, and then a PO6 where it shoots 3 bullets in 1 sniper shot. Along with all these launch weapons came a ton of DLC guns, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but were blocked behind a paywall. Some of the DLC weapons were extremely unique unique and awesome, like the D13 sector, which would literally shoot a disc around the map and could bounce off walls. And others being tons of melee weapons like swords, fists, and even boxing gloves, which were community driven, where the community had to play a certain amount of games and get XP and wins, and in return everyone would receive boxing gloves, a melee weapon which they could get and use, which was extremely fun. Along with unique gameplay and gunplay came specialists, something that Black Ops 3 introduced for the first time ever and was reused in Black Ops 4. This allowed the player to work towards something in their game, as unlocking their ability gave them a competitive advantage and was a lot more fun than just playing the game like normal. Each specialist had 2 different abilities which you could choose before the game. One would be lethal and one wouldn't be. So for example, the specialist Spectre would have 2 unique abilities, the non-lethal being active camo, where you'd essentially go camouflaged until you shot your first bullet, and the second one being Ripper, where you'd essentially have a lot more enhanced and effective melee weapon, which would allow you to kill opponents very easily and with a tiny bit of range. All specialists, like in the name, gave you special abilities that would only make the gameplay a lot more fun and enhanced, along with each player having the exact same ability of getting it several times a game, or only once, or never, depending on how well they play. So it was an equal and balanced playing field. Some also enhanced your movement, such as overdrive, where you'd be able to run extremely fast compared to the normal player. Speaking of movement, Black Ops 3's multiplayer maps had to fit the movement system, and in doing so, in my opinion, created some of the best multiplayer maps to ever grace Call of Duty. Not only were so many of them original, but they also remastered some of the greats like Raid as Empire and Nuketown, giving it its own original feel. Some of their originals were maps like Aquarium, Fringe, Combine, Evac, Hunted, Infection, Redwood, and Micro, all completely unique from one another, but gameplay thrived. Something else really memorable that came out of this Call of Duty was the Mastery Camo Dark Matter. Before this, there had only been Gold and Diamond, which was the hardest camo to grind for, and on launch came a secret camo Dark Matter, which a lot of players wanted. This was the hardest camo in terms of grinding to get in Call of Duty ever, and is often seen as one of the best camos. In addition to this came basically create your own camos in the form of paint jobs. Paint jobs was something that Black Ops 3 added and hadn't been in a previous Call of Duty, and was loved by so many because it gave the player customization, giving them shapes, colors, and several layers to basically make a Photoshop edit onto your gun, and you were able to run that gun camo in-game, which is something that's brand new, and I don't know why future Call of Duties integrate it into their games, because everyone likes being able to have their own customizable camo on their gun. Similarly to this, you could also customize your own emblem, so you wouldn't be tempted by store bundles like today, but you'd be able to just create your own and make whatever you want. One very negative thing that Black Ops 3's multiplayer had was their transaction system, which was introduced in Advanced Warfare and was brought back into Black Ops 3 unfortunately, and then died with the future Call of Duty Infinite Warfare for good reason. Essentially what it was like was when there was a new DLC weapon, or specialist gear for that matter, drop, your only way of getting it would have been through a transaction system of buying supply drops or earning them through in-game time. Earning them through in-game time would take so long though, even if you were playing really well, so a lot of players just surrendered to buying the supply drops, especially YouTube content creators, which basically just led to the multiplayer being pay to win if you wanted DLC guns. And though you could technically earn these guns and specialist gears through in-game time, it would be completely randomized, so you still wouldn't even be able to earn a certain weapon even if you wanted to, unless you opened up crazy supply boxes or got extremely lucky. This would lead to just about every player wanting a DLC weapon that they're really unable to attain, unless again they get extremely lucky or they spend a lot of their own money opening supply boxes. And for the last thing I'll touch on with Black Ops 3's multiplayer is the lobby leaderboards. Something we haven't seen in years is the transparency with the lobby leaderboards like Black Ops 3's system. Essentially everyone in the lobby, you'd be able to look at their stats and see right away what type of player they are, what type of game mode they play, some of their calling cards they've earned, what their KD ratio is, and more. It was really cool to be able to see who was in your lobby and what type of stats that they had, but also, even better, your own. You were able to see your own stats, such as your own KD ratio, and in comparison with your friends, which was really fun. Black Ops 3's multiplayer's movement system, gunplay, specialist abilities, and doing the little things allowed for it to be one of the best multiplayers in Call of Duty history, and my personal favorite. With that out of the way, zombies. With the introduction of Black Ops 3 zombies, they also introduced a ton of new systems and mechanics. Because I was just talking about the mechanics in multiplayer, I'll also dig right into the mechanics of zombies. The leaderboard system was also perfect for zombies, being able to go through people's high rounds, what guns they've used a lot, which gobble gums they've used, their average rounds and how much time they've spent on the game. It also made it extremely easy to do this with just a few click of the buttons, as well as your own. Just like in multiplayer, you're able to see your stats very clearly and very easily. And this is a big deal because in the newer and older Call of Duty Zombies, you aren't able to see your stats like this, especially not down to the minute details such as how many doors you've opened or how many perks you've drank. This is especially helpful for public matches or when you're playing with random people and you want to be able to see if they're a good player or not. Something else that came with Black Ops 3 Zombies that are all kind of tied into each other is the Gobblegum system, the Liquid Divinium system, and Dr. Monty's factory. Essentially, you'd play a bunch of games, and in those games you'd earn XP, and with the XP you'd earn Liquid Divinium, which you'd then be able to spin for a random Gobblegum. Once you'd have several Gobblegums, you'd be able to go into Newton's Cookbook, which is essentially where you trade Gobblegums for other Gobblegums, and you'd be able to get whatever you wanted, which keeps it less randomized. Now let's backtrack a little bit because you might not know what Gobblegums are. Gobblegums were in no previous Zombies title and were just in Black Ops 3 up to this date. But essentially what they do is give the player the option to pop them, and each one would give you a certain benefit. Some of them were very overpowered, such as Power Vacuum, where you'd essentially get 5 rounds of tons of power-ups, which would help you get to higher rounds. Or you could get ones that weren't as good or just bad, such as like replenishing the wood on a barrier. The Gobblegums had 2 distinctive categories though, being Classic and Mega. The Classics you'd have forever and infinite as long as you were level 35 or above, and each one you'd be able to unlock by leveling up, whereas the Megas you'd run out the more that you use them. Really, Gobblegums just serve the purpose as making the game more enjoyable and replayable. There were just about infinite things that you could do in a Zombies match with Gobblegums in completely different playstyles. A lot of maps also significantly benefited from these Gobblegums, keeping things more fun and entertaining, whereas sometimes, like in previous Call of Duties, they'd get boring and players would get tired of them fast. Some people think that they're a little too overpowered, but it's completely on you whether you want to use them or not, so they were the perfect addition for replayability. And if for some reason you didn't like them, you wouldn't have to use them. Moving on now to somewhat of the actual gameplay, Black Ops 3 Zombies introduced to us double pack-a-punch abilities, which essentially would happen once you double pack-a-punch your weapon, and with this, it would grant you an ability which would kill zombies for infinite rounds. Whereas in old Zombies games, guns would fall off and you'd be strict to just the wonder weapon on the map, you were able to use any gun on high rounds now. There were 5 specific abilities that you could get, being Fireworks, Thunderwall, Turned, Deadwire, and Blast Furnace. Some of them were very similar to actual wonder weapons, such as Thunderwall, which could act as like a mini thunder gun, and Deadwire, which could almost act like a wonder wall. In addition to changing up the gunplay a little bit, Black Ops 3 Zombies introduced weapon kits. Weapon kits allowed the player to select what attachments they'd want on their gun beforehand, whether they got it out of the box or on a wall. This would grant the player some abilities such as already having almost like a speed cola perk as a fast mag attachment, or better hip fire accuracy with a laser sight. It'd also allow you to pre-select what camos you'd want on your gun, assuming you'd want your gun to have a camo before you pack a punch. Similarly to the multiplayer, Zombies also had a prestige and leveling up system, which kept things interesting and players wanting to continue to grind so that they could get to the highest level possible. Once you've reached level 35, you're able to prestige, and there's 10 prestige levels before you enter Master Prestige. If you reach Master Prestige, you're able to get special icons near your name and a calling card. Enough with all of that, now onto the maps and the actual gameplay. Starting with Shadows of Evil, the introduction to Black Ops 3 Zombies, and was a very complex map. It may have been intimidating at first, and especially for non-experienced players, but with experience and time has only improved. This map is so good at paying attention to details and doing all of the little things correctly. Not only are the gameplay and setting of this map extremely interesting and fun, but they also managed to innovate and create almost an entirely new world within a map. With its setting being in an underworld that's corrupted, we are introduced to 4 new main characters, being a magician, a dancer, a boxer, and a cop, all of which have been sinful and are corrupt. Beginning with these characters' backstories and development is exactly what makes Shadows of Evil interesting and noteworthy. We were also introduced to the Apothicons, which play a big part in Black Ops 3 Zombies, and you can see flying in the sky, which also contrasts perfectly to the dark city tone. We are also introduced to generally agreed upon the best wonder weapon in all of Zombies. What it does is it essentially shoots a black hole, which sucks up zombies for the duration, and serves as the ultimate save me weapon. When you're backed into a corner, you just shoot it on the ground, and all the zombies get sucked right in, saving you. You're also introduced to Beast Mode, which plays a very similar role to Afterlife, like in Mob of the Dead, where you use it to open up the map, but also you get to turn on perks. And not only does it do that, but it grabs you power-ups and improves your movement speed and allowing allowing you to revive your teammates easier. Shadows of Evil also introduced to us the Civil Protector, which can prove to be very helpful in taking down the Margwa on the higher rounds, but in the lower rounds isn't that useful, but still pretty awesome. Shadows of Evil was also the introduction of the perk Widow's Wine, which essentially gives you 4 grenades that you automatically activate once you're hit by a zombie, ultimately forming a cocoon or almost like a web around the zombies, basically stunning, or keeping them from swiping you again, keeping you safe. The Apothecant Sword is also the very first specialist that we've ever gotten in zombies, and just about 80% of the Easter egg is upgrading it. The Easter egg, I'd say, is extremely middle of the pack, and unfortunately can only be completed with 4 players. Overall, I'd say Shadows of Evil is easily a top 3 zombies map ever, and pays attention extremely well to little details. Similarly to Shadows of Evil, the Giant was available on launch of Black Ops 3. This is the exact same plain copy of Derice from the previous iterations of Call of Duty, being in World at War and Black Ops 1. This serves as the perfect balance between difficulty and complexity, like what you were getting with Shadows, but in the Giant, it's very simplified and timeless. The Giant was perfect for noobs who were just starting to play zombies and needed to get to the basics and the fundamentals, but also was perfect for older players who would like to play an old nostalgic map or basic zombies game without needing 100 steps to unlock Pack-a-Punch. When players got bored of Shadows of Evil, they were able to just hop on the Giant, assuming they'd paid the $6 DLC for it. Together, Shadows of Evil and the Giant also served perfectly with one another because they're completely polar opposites, with Shadows of Evil being extremely complex and the Giant being extremely simple, leaving room for all zombies players to have enjoyment with tons of replayability. Next up, Horizon Direct. Black Ops 3's DLC 1, which is often regarded as the first peak of zombies. Not too complex of a map, but not too complicated either. It perfectly strikes the balance between being tedious and time consuming, but also being the perfect difficulty and not taking too long to set up. This map takes place in an Austrian castle in the snow, which right away sounds pretty amazing. This map did so many things right. Similarly to Origins, for example, they brought back the beloved 4 elemental staves in the form of bows, allowing each of the 4 players in your game, if you're playing with 4, an opportunity to build their own overpowered wonder weapon. None of the quests to achieve them are either time consuming or tedious either, and they're all certainly worth building. The map's movement, integrating teleportation and the wonder spheres, also made for perfect fast movement to get across the map. Along with this, the map's DG4, the unique specialist on the map, was very good, but also a necessity for the completion of the Easter egg, which was almost perfect. Again, struck the perfect balance between difficulty and tediousness. It also introduced to us the very first boss fight ever, consisting of 3 waves of zombies, Panzer Soldats, and weak points on the Giant Keeper. Panzers were brought back from Origins as well, and were essentially buffed. Once you're done with the boss fight and the Easter egg, you also destroy the moon, shooting rockets into the sky. All in all, Horizon Direct was certainly the best DLC 1 map any Black Ops game has ever seen, and will forever be a top 5 zombies map. With the introduction of DLC 2 came the zombies masterpiece, Zetsubo no Shima, and no, I'm not being sarcastic. It is commonly not looked upon as a fantastic map, and I'd have to disagree with this. Zetsubo no Shima takes place on a corrupted island and has the perfect dark and scary green color palette. The only thing negative I can say about this map is its mini-boss zombie, the Thrasher, which can be very tanky on later rounds, being very hard to kill, and the setup to get all your guns you want Pack-a-Punched and perks. Setting up on this map can take upwards of 45 minutes, and if you're really fast, you can probably do it in half an hour. But once done, you're rewarded with one of the best maps ever. The wonder weapon, being the KT-4, is essentially a plant-based liquefier, which is a little worse, but still really cool and can be upgraded to the Masamune, unlike the liquefier. The process may be long and tedious, consisting of a really cool spider boss fight, completion of random challenges, which are given at the start of the game, and a lot of watering plants. Once completed, gives you a very good gun, which deals infinite damage to zombies. Similarly to the KT-4's upgrading process is the Easter egg process, which is basically collecting 3 cogs and repairing elevator, which lowers you down into the boss fight arena where you fight a corrupted Takiao, where, spoiler alert, we get an amazing cutscene upon the completion of the egg, where we are given tons of character development between Takiao and the Emperor. Basically, Takiao finds out the Emperor is not who he really thought he was, changing the mindset Takiao has had for years, basically giving him a new character. The Skull of Nansapoi is also on this map, which can be built by doing 4 podium challenges with skulls, and then being finished by completing 1 final ritual. In my opinion, it's the best specialist in the game, and is also essential in completing the Easter egg. Not to mention, it's also amazing at killing zombies and getting you out of really sticky situations. Setsubo's atmosphere is also another really really big reason it's so special. It's one of the darkest looking maps we have, but at the same time remaining interesting to where you can feel there's darkness, giving you a sense of insecurity. Zetsubo remains not the most loved map possibly, but is extremely underrated with lots of small innovative additions. After Zetsubo no Shima came DLC 3's Gorod Krovi, also in my opinion a top tier zombies map. Being located in war-torn Stalingrad, but with dragons roaming the sky and not only breathing fire on the map, but also taking us to Pack-a-Punch and fighting us in the final boss fight, leads for an insane gameplay. We finally got a zombies map with a dragon, and it did not disappoint. It gives us the feel of an older map with its colors not being too nice and grayish tone, but with modern mechanics and modern wonder weapons and feel. The wonder weapon on the map being introduced for the first time was the ray gun Mark III, the best of all ray guns to this date. It was dual wield, with the left allowing a slowing effect, basically stunning the zombies, and the right acting as the ray gun Mark I, shooting ray projectiles. Together it formed mini black holes, similarly to the Apothecon Servant, but not close to as good. This wonder weapon on rounds 1 through 35-ish is amazing, but quickly becomes unusable for killing zombies after round 50. They also brought back the PPSH, which was perfect for the OG zombies players, and generally just about everyone, considering it's an amazing gun with tons of ammo. The specialist on the map is the Gauntlet of Siegfried, which allows you to shoot mini dragons that have a flame and kill zombies. Or you have the option to unleash it and let it go killing on its own, protecting you. Or you also have the Fist, which you can use to dash through zombies, instantly killing them. It's also perfectly integrated with the Easter egg, similarly to Drak and Shadows, and Zetsubo. The map's Easter egg is almost done perfectly, I'd say, being definitely one of the hardest ever, but remains fun and not tedious. With this, it gives you just about something to do at all times. Essentially what it is it gives you 6 main challenges that you have to do after completing the Valve step. Then you move on to completing the 6 steps associated with the collected trophies that have been scattered around the map. Each of these challenges associated with the trophies has you do a different step, with going from escorting a friendly Valkyrie, for example, which by the way is the mini boss on the map, along with the Russian Mangler zombies, which can both be somewhat annoying but don't pose much of a challenge. And back to the trophy steps, running around the map and deactivating bombs in a random order, and if you hit the wrong bomb, everyone in the game will explode, ending the game unless you have a safety player in the spawn of the map. Once you are finished with all the challenges and you're able to go to the boss fight, you fight a dragon in 3 phases, shooting the weak points, and when you've finally taken it down, you then go on to fight Nikolai 1.0 in a giant mech suit. He spawns Raps, which is the kill streak in multiplayer, Mangler zombies, and normal zombies, and tries to kill you while you shoot his weak points as well. Once you've killed Nikolai, you're given a really good and long cutscene where Primus Nikolai kills Ultimus Nikolai, sacrificing him. The map's gameplay leaves you with so much to do, along with the setting being phenomenal, being integrated very well with the story, leaves it to be very remembered, creating a masterpiece of a zombies map. With the conclusion of Gorod Krovi, we are introduced to Revelations, final zombies map being DLC 4. It's very story related, which I'm not very into, but basically it is the Primus crew that we have known versus the Shadow Man and the Apothecon allies of his. The boss fight and Easter egg are all very lackluster, with most of it just being copy and paste, or genuinely being tedious with not much of the steps making sense. This is by far the easiest map ever to date, allowing the player to hold not only the Thunder Gun, which is an extremely overpowered wonder weapon that does infinite damage, but also the Apothecon Servant from Shadows of Evil, and this time you can actually upgrade it, giving it its black hole effect longer and increased ammo. Along with these 2 overpowered wonder weapons, you're given Lil Arnie's and Ragnarok's, giving you so much firepower and infinite damage dealing options that you can basically get to any round you want. The actual map layout is really cool, having several jump pads leading to essentially 4 different islands, which are made up of previous zombies maps, like Shangri-La from Black Ops 1 and Mob of the Dead from Black Ops 2, amongst several others. Each of these has a central transportation destination to Nocturne Toten, which is connected to all 4, which also has Juggernog and a buildable table, and most importantly, access to the Apothecon's Mouth, where you go to Pack-a-Punch. The Apothecon's Mouth and the Spawn are really the only 2 unique and brand new locations that Revelations brought. This is one of the most aesthetically pleasing maps in all of zombies though, in my opinion, definitely being the best. It has so many beautiful colors and like a galaxy scheme type of setting. Overall, the map is very middle of the pack, but still remains extremely fun and enjoyable. After DLC 4, we thought we were all done with all DLC and zombies content, but to our surprise, Treyarch released DLC 5, Zombies Chronicles, the first ever dedicated and 100% DLC strictly for zombies. This still remains the highest selling PlayStation DLC ever made, and it's for good reason. This introduced to us old zombies maps that have been remastered to Black Ops 3's engine with the much improved graphics and HUD. They brought back some fan favorites like Origins and some maps that weren't close to as good like Moon. Zombie Chronicles allowed all of these zombies maps to be brought back, but changed with some being extremely better. Moon was one of those maps. It was extremely ugly and not that fun on Black Ops 1 in my opinion, but with the introduction of gobblegums and the new graphics with a fantastic color scheme, Moon on Black Ops 3 is significantly better. All maps were playable with gobblegums now, giving it a different experience and significant color saturation upgrades, leading pretty much every map to be beautiful. While other maps may not have seen a big glow, like Shino Numa for example, which I feel like wouldn't have mattered whether it was remastered or not, these maps all gave the players more options and things to do. Black Ops 3 Zombies has not only the most maps, but in my opinion, 3 of the best top 5 of all time, with one also being remastered brought back. So Black Ops 3 really has 4 of the top 5 maps ever in my opinion. With Black Ops 3 Zombies having the most quantity and the best quality of maps and content, in my opinion, it destroys all previous Call of Duty Zombies experiences. In conclusion, Black Ops 3's multiplayer and zombies arguably innovated as much as any other Call of Duty ever has, and remains the most memorable through its sense of unity and amazing community feel. I've seriously had so many amazing memories with this game, and would call it not only the best Call of Duty ever, but my personal favorite video game ever.